episode 120 of Genn and Millie, where a Gen Xer and a millennial share the strength-based perspective through which they view the world. We are your hosts, Allison and Tess. Hi, Tess.
Hi, Allie.
It is so good to see your face. For the listeners that don't know the insight behind this, we see each other while we are recording. Where when we first began, we saw each other in real life doing these recordings, and I shared a comment today based on my time hop reminded me that we've been doing this for a bit, and we used to have the opportunity to do it in person.
Yeah.
So grateful that we've continued to do it through 120 episodes, but it has been a bit since we have recorded, and some of our listeners gave me a time frame in which it has been a bit. Yeah. And I think wonderful to come into this space and connect with you and hear how things have been going. But also, this is my favorite time of year. We're coming up on your birthday. Mm-hmm. This is my favorite time of year because it's both a reminder of the end and the beginning, the duality. Mm-hmm. And so what a great time for us to come together and have our Genn and Millie conversation here.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I think I do want to let listeners know that even though we have not published an episode since July, which is crazy because we're at the end of December, number one, sorry everybody. Number two, we're not sorry. We actually have recorded, and we did an episode, what was it, like end of October, early November? Mm-hmm. It was still a big gap from the last episode we've published, and I was like, okay, let's make it happen. Let's get it published. Let's get it out there. And you encouraged us not to, because you encouraged me not to, because it's been, for both of us, a tough last 6 months. But yes, from my own lived experience, it was a very tough episode to record because I was not in the best place, stress management and workload management between dissertation and job market and teaching and all of the other things. And so I was like, well, let's do it. We live life. We live it honestly. We live it loud. And then you said, wait on it. And I didn't feel good about it. So I decided not to publish it. And I'm grateful for your encouragement and grateful for the community of listeners who, if you tune into this one, man, you're loyal after 6 months of we didn't ghost you completely. We just needed some time. So grateful for you and for this space and for the listeners.
I'm grateful to be home long enough to record one of these. As you can hear my right on cue, the planes in the background. A lot of the reason that we have been unable to record is just time. Your schedule, and being in a location that isn't an airport or someone else's boardroom, for me, has been one of the biggest challenges of the last 6 months. And coming into, again, my favorite time of year in both the end and the beginning, I've had an opportunity to have some days at home, which I very much look forward to, and choice around that in not trying to add one more thing and looking forward to the next couple of weeks being very still and on purpose in that place of discernment. I think the woo in me, the strength of woo in me, has had a very different season in which I have become more private, more discerning, more conscientious and cautious. And I think that was probably there when we recorded in that middle time frame, thinking about, we are lucky to share this space. And for you as listeners, I know that some of you listen because it's just like having a conversation with us. And it is just like having a conversation with us because what I find is if we spend less time in the green room and more just let's go, the more likely we'll have a great recording and a great episode. But I think we also share pretty vulnerably with one another because there's trust here in this container. The broader container of that gets a little more tricky. And having this past year run into people who've said, oh yeah, I listen to Genn and Millie, I would be startled, and probably a lot more thoughtful as to what 120 episodes have shown. I did love seeing the video, which was us in Christmas sweaters, you with a tree on your as a headband, and very much, I would say, a different season, Tess, and a different season, Allison.
Yeah.
And the camaraderie and comfort that we have in conversation it's one of the greatest gifts of my life, and being lucky enough to be across the cubicle, across the desk from you. And I also think about all of the things that we have walked through in this container and with our listeners. And just at this juncture of my life and this time, something that I'm tremendously grateful for.
Yeah, me too. I think one of the things that I was thinking on, knowing that we finally were in a space to record an episode, was talking about this time. And you mentioned one of the challenges of just tangibly finding time and space and connecting when we're both in containers that are conducive for recording an episode. And I kept thinking about how I've been grateful that we've been able to share the journey to really follow our passions and our dreams in this space. And we're both living things we dreamt about for a really long time, and worked and planned and dreamed into fruition in our lives. Yet at the same time, one can be living their dream and not be respectful of boundaries, and not be the healthiest, even when you're living your dream. And those things aren't mutually inclusive nor mutually exclusive, that the Venn diagram of unhealthy boundaries and living one's dream can overlap. And I think when you're so driven like we are by passion, by purpose, by vision, by our muses, is that the plural of muses? When you're so driven by that, I was like, muses. I think when you're so driven by those things, it's actually easier to slip into worse boundaries, because you can justify all of the ways in which you are harming yourself by not having good boundaries, because you so recognize and realize the purpose in what you're doing. And I think that's been the last 6 months of my life, particularly with my dissertation research taking up so much of my physical, mental, and emotional brain space, along with teaching a very large class and also trying to find a job, and recognizing that I'm on, the path for graduating earlier than I thought, which means I have to start looking for a job earlier than I thought. All of these things, right? All of these things, when I think about them, and I even talked to my therapist at one point, and I was like, if I could slow down the pace of this semester, I didn't have the looming deadline of my dissertation defense, I didn't have this looming deadline if I have to have a job and a contract signed somewhere at this point, if I didn't have these things, I would be living my perfect life right now. But because I have these deadlines and these pressures and these things on my plate, it's not perfect. It's in violation of my boundaries and what I know is best for me. But I continually bring that violence upon myself by breaking my own boundaries, because I know the why, because I know the purpose, because I can justify it, because this is my dream and I'm living it. But that doesn't make it okay that I continue to do that.
It's always just fascinating to me that we can be apart from each other, and we have big generational differences, life differences, and yet be in the same containers of struggle quite often. I have found in my year-ish now of being my own employer and reporting to me. I like to joke that I'm not just, it's not the chicken or the egg, I'm the hen house and the farm director and all of those things. Mm-hmm. It has been both from need, right? Like, this is my livelihood now. This is what I'm doing. So my first year, I wanted to make sure I could do this. I still live in doubt that this is going to work. And yet I continue to have some amazing clients and have some amazing work just happen. And at the same time, while it was, I could view it as a need for monetary livelihood, this is my work, I also was finding a validation need in validating my decision to go solo, validating my worth in my work, which has always kind of been a thing for me that I've had to identify. And also, for the first time in my life, I have complete, utter freedom. I don't answer to anyone. And with that comes responsibility that is sometimes a challenge. So what I think, if you were to poll my friends and family, this has probably been the most distant I have been. And if you looked at my text threads with those who are closest to me, it's a series of, here's where I'm going, here's where I am, I'm on the plane, I can't right now, I'll try when I get a minute. And it has been very intense as far as travel, but I love it. And it feels both like freedom and choice, and also stress. Yeah. And very difficult for me to balance when I am at home, the opportunity that I have to just be, and that no one in my life who loves me and cares about me, it really gives a shit about how much I earned this past year, nor do they give a shit about how many clients I served or what kinds of issues those teams are working with. What they give a shit about is me. Yeah. And I have learned that I have a lot of work to do when it comes to me finding validation and worth in the outside versus both the internal and my tight, small circle.
How are you doing on your word of the year?
Direction has been a constant, a reminder of volume and velocity and intensity and rhythm and movement, and like, you've got to move in this direction to get some solid footing. Coming into 50 next month. And I think the past year has given me really strong direction in how critical my own best practices are and to uphold those. One of them being sleep. It's just not feasible to be able to sleep well in a different hotel room every month. Exercise gets pushed to the bottom. Nutrition gets pushed to the bottom when you're just rushing here and here. And I can justify it. Yeah. I would then justify those poor well-being choices. So I think my word of the year, where I thought, as it always does, where I thought it would take me, definitely took me a different direction. How about for you?
Surprisingly, I feel like it took me in the direction I anticipated. My word was inspired, and I definitely felt and sat in that inspiration and that feeling very much, mainly in my dissertation research. Like, I was chatting with a master's student in the program. She's a year behind me, and she's wrapping up her master's thesis. She does kind of similar research that I do. in the fact that she concentrates generally on religion and religious decline, which is really unique in our department. And she was texting me the other day just asking me about like a tangible resource around like qualitative coding and things like that. So I was sending her that, and she, in the midst of it, after she got that, she just asked in general how I was doing. And I was telling her, I was updating on where I was at, and she's like, that is amazing. Like, you've made so much progress, and I can't believe you're almost done and all of this. And so I replied back to her. Actually, I kind of want to pull it up because my first inclination, and I actually wrote it in my message to her, I said, I've honestly really enjoyed the experience, meaning my dissertation. I said, it sounds silly to say it about a dissertation. I actually wrote this out in the text. I'm like, because I mean, most people hate their dissertation by the end of it. Like, the phrase is a good dissertation is a done dissertation. Like, that's the phrase. Like, just get it done so you can move on, right? And I said, it's so silly to say about a dissertation, but it's work that is so important to me, and I feel so honored to do it. And that's been all of this. It's like my committee approved 30, they were like max 40 interviews. I did 60 and had to turn people away. And I had thousands of minutes of coding. I have hundreds and hundreds of pages of codes and quotes and findings. My first draft, which I just finished up of my findings chapter, is 50 pages because it was so rich and so detailed, and people shared so much of their own experiences. And listening back and correcting codes and identifying themes that I wanted to write about in this was so hard to do because people gave so much of themselves to such a short time with me talking about their experiences. And yeah, I mean, I felt, and throughout the year, I felt inspired. Like, I felt continually motivated to continue to do this work, not to finish the degree, but because it's important to get this knowledge out there. Like, people can talk in circles about what the politicization of religion has meant for the US, right? But I have all of this data to demonstrate the reality of what it actually is, and how people actually feel about it and how it's driven them away from religion. And so I want to get these stories out there because they're important to get out there. They're important for people to know and to read and to hear. They're important for the people that participated to share those stories. And so I just, yeah, I mean, it's how I anticipated it, for sure, how I anticipated my word to show up, which is somewhat weird, but at the same time, of course, it should have been new in different ways. And again, it brings me back to this thing I'm thinking about and ruminating on continually, which is I felt inspired and I lived my purpose and I got to do what I came in writing in my application I wanted to do, which most people don't for their PhD. Like, you have to write a research statement, right? But the chances of actually doing what you proposed in your research statement when you apply to the program, is very slim. Most people change their minds a lot, and I haven't. Like, I've stuck to exactly what I wanted to do, and it's driven me to graduate a year earlier than anticipated. And so, like these things are great and fabulous and exciting, and I feel inspired and I feel so honored to get to do this work. And at the same time, I didn't honor my boundaries. Like, my relationship suffered because of it, and I didn't keep up with friends as much as I wanted to, and I didn't, connect and be there for important moments in my family's lives the way that I wanted to. And so, yeah, I think I just keep thinking about this reality of, like, you can be living your dream. And that's where I'm like, I went to, quick side story, Georgetown opened up a Barnes & Noble. They closed down the Barnes & Noble about 10 years ago. And now with Book Talk and all these things, reading is becoming super popular again. They opened a 3-story Barnes & Noble in the same location that they were in 10 years ago. And so I went to the Barnes & Noble and I actually picked up a book on Ikigai. And I love the concept, and we've talked about the concept here, right? Like what you're good at, what the world needs, right? Like these intersections of our lives to really find our purpose and our calling. And I keep thinking about how there needs to be some sort of funnel after you process the intersection of your Ikigai circles. Because at the center might be your purpose and your passion and your vision. But what happens when you dedicate to living so much for that you sacrifice the basic principles of what you need to live in well-being, in quality living, right? Like that might be well-being for your soul because you're living in your purpose and your passion. But what about the well-being of your physical body, right? And what about the well-being of, of your relationals and, right, like well-being of those individual circles, or the well-being of the things that support you to be able to do those circles, which are your relational connections and your connections to food, your connections to your physical body. And yeah, I think, I don't know, I'm just... now rambling and sitting with this.
I think that, so a couple of things that I just have to name your learner. I mean, for me years ago to have named you Professor Tess, it's just so, it's so obvious now. And how the work that you are doing is so in alignment with your values. It's everything we teach about Ikigai, right? Yeah. It's the utilization of your strengths, what you're good at. Your learner is just on fire, forever the teacher, forever the student, forever the in it, and what the world or community needs, and what you love to do. I don't know that there are a lot of people, Tess, unfortunately, that are in their purpose. So when I talk about my work, I get all lit up, and sometimes I get eye rolls, like, okay, you love your job. I mean, I am so in it that I sometimes think that part of me doesn't think about all the other things. Like when it comes to order of priority, me being in my purpose has often exceeded me taking care of myself physically. And I think I'm learning more about that in discernment because I'm coming up on 50, and heads up, all y'all who are younger listeners, shit changes. And I mean, it really changes. And I have lived in the denial of that for a long, long time. I also have recognized through the lens of my family that I have the ability to appear indestructible, or because I've gone through hard things. And don't get me wrong, when I'm in hard things and I'm in high stress, zone in, do it, get it done. And then the ripple effect of not sleeping, and then the ripple effect of not taking care of myself. So to be in alignment with my purpose, fabulous. To not be in alignment with my values, not fabulous. And what I'm learning is that is much more of a commitment than I expected it to be. So in this season of me gleaning clients, I didn't believe I could say no. At all, actually. So if someone wanted me for coaching and this was their budget, my answer was yes. If someone wanted me for a team workshop and this was their budget, my answer was yes. And now what I've learned in this last year is that I am being requested specifically, and my rates have gone up, and it is very difficult for me to own my worth. At the same time, be in alignment with the fact that money has never been a driving force for me. It has never been a value for me. It is always about being in the work that I'm aligned to do in my Ikigai. I do think that we're rare. And when we go back to the data, which I just simply cannot stop talking about for the rest of my life, 1/3 engaged, 2/3 are not, I get to see it literally now in my every single day. It is also very important for us to think about what our level of engagement, if we are highly engaged at work, how do our other areas of life suffer?
Yeah.
It goes back to those 5 areas of well-being, all of the great research and work from Tom Rath, which I keep going back to and thinking about well-being and thinking about his own personal journey. I have learned a lot this year. Not very much of it is public. Much of it is going to be private and, discerning lens. I also have been really lucky to have a circle that supports me 1000% in this endeavor and is excited for me. If that wasn't the case, this might be a very different conversation. But I can't help but to give out a shout to my circle for the encouragement. I would be remiss if I did not mention that the Danny has become a significant part of my life, a significant support, and his patience with me being gone 25 days a month and averaging about 5 days a month at home. His patience with that has been remarkable, and it's also been remarkable to be in a relationship with someone who is my intellectual superior. He is smarter than me, which makes all kinds of arguments difficult. And such great learning. Yeah. It's such great learning to look at the way I have approached the world up until this person came into my life. I think I thought about that today when I saw our video and the time that we had with Hannah in the beginning origins of Genn and Millie. Like, who was I before I knew Tess?
Yeah.
Who was I before I got to have these conversations? And our ease in those dialogues when we're in these dumbass Christmas sweaters.
Yeah.
It's for me to now name another moment in my life. Who was I before this person came into my world? I have a lot of examples of that. I can't lose sight of that. That's everything to me. And so these days between now and New Year's will be a time for me to reflect in gratitude and an appreciation for those who've been patient with Allison, both in her purpose and out of alignment with her own best practices and out of alignment with her circle of support.
I love that. Thinking of these days as reflective, which is one of my favorite activities. You can strengths back context. I have some reflection questions that I always like to think about at the end of the year. So I thought maybe we ought to have talk about a few of these. How about one thing that you learned about yourself this year?
Ooh, this feels braggy. Oh.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Practice what we preach, right?
I'm good at what I do.
Yeah. Hell yeah, you are.
It's not that I didn't know. I just hadn't received the level of feedback until now.
Yeah.
How about for you?
We should put an explicit label on this.
Isn't every one of these episodes?
We've sworn a few times. I'm going to add it to this one, I think. I'm going to figure out how to do it. But because my first inclination...
Put the big E? Is that what it is? It's a big
yeah. Because my response is, I don't give two flying fucks if what I'm doing is something that other people don't agree with.
I love when other people cuss.
I came to the point, especially this last semester, of everyone in my life is coupled, right? And I'm I get all these questions about oh my gosh, you dating and what's that like? And I went on a few dates earlier in the beginning of this semester. I was in a relationship which I talked about on this podcast throughout kind of the spring summer that ended, and I just was like, okay, I know I should be going back on apps and I should be going on dates. And I was like, I don't want to. I want to spend my free time hanging out with my dog, making myself an espresso martini, and reading a cushy romance novel in the evening. It is the most blissful thing that I get to do. And it distracts me and makes me turn off from my work when I need to create some boundaries with that. And it is just perfect. And there's all these expectations and all these questions and all of these, like, I should be doing this. And I was putting that on myself too. Normally, I'm like, if other people are putting that on me, I don't care. It was like this, oh, I should get out there. I should do that, yada, yada. And I came to the point of like, absolutely not. I would much rather spend my time by myself, reading, doing exactly what I want to do, which I've kind of always done that. But I really got to the point of I don't care at all about if other people are putting that on me. And it was very much a, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do, and if it makes me happy, I don't care what other people think.
I don't know who told me this, and I know I probably should. Don't shit on yourself.
Yeah.
Don't shit on yourself, and don't shit on other people either.
I think that was a Micah Librant quote.
Was it a Micah? Don't shit on yourself? Yeah. God, I love her, and always will. Don't shit on yourself. And along with that, Tess, we all should have guilty pleasures that completely take us out of whatever stresses are going on. My daughter's happens to be absolute shit reality TV. Some of the shows she's watching, I am like, I lost more brain cells in that episode than I did my entire college experience. Like, this is the dumbest... Like, I don't even get what's happening. And Lauren loves it. And Lauren and my mom now have this shared love, and they have conversations about it that I'm not included in. But you should have something in your life that feels like a guilty pleasure. Right now, mine is Music League. And Music League is an app that my dear friend Jamie and her husband Chad introduced me to this year. Music League is an opportunity for every week. We have a different theme. You get to submit a song in the league, and then you vote. And it is fantastic. It has been one of my greatest sources of just fun. Like, for example, we just wrapped up a jazz theme, which everyone hated, by the way. Like, snooze alert, that was awful. What's your walk-up song? The best Christmas song ever. We're coming into the next one is all about what's the best song that refers to getting stoned. I mean, this is just pure fun, and we meet. So when I'm in Omaha, we've had Music League gatherings, and it's this group of humans that I would not know had it not been for this app, and it has just been an absolute delight. Brought Sean into the league, and Sean's pretty darn good. He's actually ahead of me right now in the standings. I'm not competitive until it comes to this.
Until it comes to music.
Until it comes to music, then get out of my way. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. How about when you think back on this last year, what's a moment that will stick with you for years to come?
Oh boy, there have been a lot. I have to pause on that. That question is too hard for me emotionally. And I have to pause on it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to have to process.
Yeah, answer it on your own. Doesn't need to be on the episode.
I will have to process that one.
Okay.
How about for you?
My friends and I, so this summer I moved into a new apartment in DC, which has been fabulous, and I peer pressured my closest friend in DC to move into the same apartment, and I also ran into, the first day that I moved in, a good friend from high school that I hadn't talked to in 10 years. So strings at that. I don't know what that is. Universe, serendipity, connectedness. Yeah, all the things. And so we formed this awesome group of the three of us, and we have 2 blocks away from our apartment this really cute, moody, modern Italian place that has a martini happy hour in a lounge. $7 martinis.
Did you say moody?
Very moody. Yeah.
I'm going to be using that adjective, adverb, all of the moodiness, mood.
Like if I had a home where I could like paint my walls and put up wallpaper and just like make my own space, like it would look like this lounge. It's such a pretty space, like dark and dim lighting and very like warm tones, and they have a $7 martini happy hour, which you can't get any drink for $7 in DC, and but every single day from when they open to when they close, just in this area of the restaurant. So we have created a ritual of going every single Friday, and it has been the most beautiful thing. There have been some times where their spouses have joined us, or one week where my friend's parents were in town, so her dad came and joined us, but most of the time it's the three of us, and we have 2 martinis to round out the week, and we chat and we catch up, and it's an amazing marker of time. And it's been such a like beautiful ritual. Like I love rituals, I love moments of pause, and it's been like just like such an awesome container that has
That's
been
the best practice.
Yeah, it's an amazing
celebration,
practice. So,
recognition, ritual, connection, depth.
Yeah. So
I love that.
That's been really, really great. So I've really enjoyed that. And so that's been, we now joke that we're like, so for Spot Individualization, for their Christmas gifts, I got them, the restaurant just started making a t-shirt that said the Cristini Marini Cocktail Club or Martini Club, and it has like, it marks this martini happy hour, and so I got us all matching t-shirts for the place, and we're like gonna make ourselves regulars here, so yada yada. But anyway, so it's not one moment, but it's this ritual of moments that has brought some beautiful intention into my life.
I love that. I love that. Do more of that.
Yeah, I know.
And got to see a picture of this place, so.
Oh, sure. Yeah. How about, you mentioned earlier a challenge. How about what's been, if you were to distill 2024 into, what is the challenge this year brought into your life?
The challenges that come with success. And who you share that with, who you don't, how you prioritize yourself when you're, in a season of great work and creating a business. I created a business. I was, again, I love Time Hop, and context is really low for me, but I love Time Hop because it marks these moments of where I had to adjust or shift.
Yeah.
And not too long ago, it doesn't seem anyway, a few years back, I really had to shift.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what that would look like. Didn't know what the move here would look like. Didn't know what leaving teammates would look like. All these sort of like, darn it, I wish I would have had this wisdom at 40 and not waited this long, or darn it, 30 would have been even better. But I had to have life experiences in order to build my belief in myself to make this choice. But I would say the challenge has been the hard parts of things going well. Like my accountant Brian would love hearing me say that. Like taxes are bullshit, man. And, I'm now having to figure all of that out on my own and figure out insurance on my own and, dumb things like air emissions. Just things that I have to be responsible. And I've always been. But it was more responsibility for others than responsibility for my success. Sure. So a lot of pressure that comes with that. And, nobody else is going to F it up besides me. Yeah. So with the solo artistry comes deep responsibility, and there's been some challenge there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I'm also learning how to be a good mom to a 28-year-old and a 24-year-old. And mothering looks very different in this season.
Sure.
I am not the boss of them. And just learning how to observe and encourage versus direct.
Sure, that makes sense. I've certainly had a lot of challenges this past year, but I think the big challenge the year presented me with I had a lot of relational management to do this year, and that was very challenging. I had a friend breakup that had to happen that took a lot of emotional energy and still wears on me to think about. I've had to do a lot of managing with my dissertation advisor. I love her. She's presented me with a lot of opportunities, but she's incredibly stretched, and so rightfully so, I'm not a top priority for her, even though I have set goals and timelines and things that I want to do. So that's been a stressful space and relationship to manage. As we know, I'm not a woo person, but I do very much value my relationships and friendships, and I give a lot to them. And I think this year I was challenged with having to put some clear endings and clear boundaries and clear protocols in place for certain relationships that I think historically I would have been okay, and I had been okay with kind of being run into the ground at the expense of trying to maintain relationships. So yeah, I think that was my challenge.
I think we should note that that should be a Genn and Millie topic for 2025, because I think most humans have walked through that to some extent, and it is painful and very, very difficult. It is also when you claim what you need, and that impacts how you show up for another. That is some of the hardest work that we should do as humans, particularly as women.
Yeah. How about, I'm sure we will, and we should at the end of this, mark a time on the calendar after the beginning of the year. So we're back on a better schedule. But how about one thing from 2024 that you want to bring into 2025 as we futurecast a bit?
The value of travel and new experiences. Yeah. I'm very excited to be planning international travel in celebration of 5-0. I am very excited to be planning a family trip I'm very excited to be planning additional travel. I didn't have that until, I think I was probably, I want to say 30-ish when teammates started sending me to California. And that was like it, that was the extent of which I had traveled. And so New York City has become like my new playland. And I'm in certain spots and have my little favorite hotel and my favorite little, restaurants. And it's looking like I'll be there more often in the new year. And then I have loved that I get to revisit Omaha from a different lens. It's no secret to, and I'm certainly not private about that, but my return to Omaha was very challenging initially because so much of that was seeped in difficult memories or hard memories. And now I'm in the space again where it's I'm finding my own. And I'm there once a month with a client. So to have regular happy hours with Gigi, have regular time with Lauren, I've become a lot more discerning in that regard. But I'm rediscovering Omaha. Like, I'm really proud of the riverfront area, and I tell people about it. And it's like a homecoming that doesn't feel like coming home. It feels like relearning a place both in mind and heart.
Almost sounds like falling back in love.
Yes. With the city, yep.
Love that.
How about you?
I think for me, it's a lot of this, I am privileged to get to do what I want to do. And so continuing to do what I want to do and not giving two F's if what people think of it and how they judge. And when they hear how much I read this year, they're like, what? How is that possible? And it's like, because it's what I love to do. And
I love that you're reading light things and fun things. When I see your Insta posts, I'm like,
yeah.
First of all, your nails always look great. Secondly, like, this is light and fun.
Yeah.
And should be.
Yeah. When I went through, I'm doing my book awards, as I often do, and I don't think I'm awarding. I barely read any nonfiction this year for fun, which is crazy because I used to only ever read nonfiction, and I've found so much joy and love in fiction.
And give yourself grace of doing things differently.
Yeah.
I've hardly written a thing. That's okay.
Yeah. Oh, man. How about anything else that we want to leave listeners with? We'd love little thoughts on your reflections. We'd love notes on what you would like to see in this space, or what you'd be curious to see in this space in the coming year. But I'm curious, anything else that you would leave with listeners, Allie?
Hopefully that cough was muted. I would leave them with, like, stay well. I really ran myself to the ground mid-December, and am now struggling with some sickies. So I think if we have not represented that here today, to give yourself grace, to take a break when you need it. I am sorry, listeners, that we have been mostly absent for half the year, but I also would encourage them to think about where they can take a pause and where they can give themselves the grace to do what they need to do.
Yeah. And sometimes the unintentional pauses can become intentional. Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode, which we have titled 120, even though we did have an episode in between. But 120, of Genn and Millie. If you enjoyed today's conversation, consider sharing this episode with a friend. We'd love to hear from you. Know that you're still out there, that you're still listening, that you're still with us. So the best way to do that and to interact with us, give your responses to these reflection questions we've posed, check in with us, any of that sort. Best way to do that is via our Instagram account at Genn and Millie. That's at GennandMillie. Until next time.